runs it in the end zone, touchdown. Feed it, replace. Castle, got a three. Somehow, some way, oh my goodness, did you see that? He hit. And now they've got him. Again, floats it complete and into the end zone. His first and goal from the 4. Daniels was going to walk it in for the touchdown.
What is up inside the locker room? We are back with another episode, and today we got a lot going on in the sports world. NBA Finals just recently went on, plus the NBA draft. What is going on around in the NFL, plus in the MLB power rankings, and the MVP race is heating up. Aaron Judge, who do you think can get the MVP? And plus, all of this is going on in this episode of Inside the Locker Room. But let's get this started with the Thunder winning the NBA Finals over the Indianapolis Pacers. And this time I'm not gonna give too much of my opinion on it first, but I passed the mic off to Adam. You know, he was very in tune with this year's playoffs, and I think it'd be right if he was the one to start this little part off.
All right, appreciate you. Yeah, I mean, Game 7 was wild. Obviously, Tyrese Halliburton started the game 3 of 4 from 3. He had 9 points, I think, in like only 7 minutes. And then, of course, went down with the Achilles injury. It was heartbreaking to see. Prayers up for a quick recovery. Definitely going to affect the Pacers next season, though. But he said he would have done it again. And if I was him, I would have done the same thing. You only get often one chance at a Game 7 in the NBA Finals. So fully support his decision. Just sad that it had to end that way. SGA, he looked like the MVP. It was really just a crazy defensive effort. It was a really low scoring game, especially for like a Game 7. But all around, it was still a great game. Honestly, the Pacers ended up actually outscoring the Thunder in the first half. After the injury, it was 18-18 when the injury first happened, and Pacers looked really good. I just think they kind of ran out of gas towards the end, and the Thunder's defensive intensity was just next level. And to me, they deserved the championship. Some people will say Pacers would have won if Halliburton was still on the court, but we'll never know. So yeah, congrats to the Thunder, NBA champions.
Benji?
Facts. Yeah, I'm so proud of OKC. I've been supporting them since 2011, 2012, since the Billy Donovan days, if you guys remember those. And the Thunder were the youngest team, to do this year. And, they had Caruso as kind of their unk in the back, but he also had a nice Game 7, hitting his threes and just showing why he was, former sixth man of the year and all that. But, as Adam mentioned before, the surgence of SGA, thanks to players like Chris Paul and just so many other factors that we also talked about on live right after the finals, just allowed OKC to propel themselves forward and take care of this Game 7. And I think the fact that this series even went to Game 7, we were blessed with some great basketball, and it exceeded our expectations, honestly. And I guess the last thing I'll say is kind of this finals recap for the NBA Finals. Obviously we had some key games from Pascal Siakam, and then obviously Adam mentions the torn Achilles for Halliburton. Does he look different next year? We know a torn Achilles for basketball is a lot different than per se football, because as a basketball player you're pretty much exploding off of your calf pretty much all the time. So hopefully he gets recovered soon, and we're all wishing Hallie a sweet soon recovery. Michael, what do you think about the end of the NBA Finals?
The thing I think about the NBA Finals in Game 7, I knew the Finals was going to go to Game 7 just off the intense level, the physicality on both sides. It was just no way that this game was not going to go to Game 7 or Game 6. I will say I'm proud of OKC. One, because they took advantage of the home court advantage. Um, you know, not that that really matters in the final series, but OKC needed to prove that, you know, we're going to win this championship on our home court. We cannot let Indiana take control of that. And I will say, Hollisberg injury, it was the calf and then it was the Achilles. Those played a big factor in the Indiana Pacers push to the title. I honestly feel like if if he didn't have the calf injury, if he didn't have the Achilles injury, then this game would have probably ended with a 3 pointer or 1 point game or something like that. Um, I mean, I had OKC winning this series, obviously, but first and foremost, I want to give my prayers out to Hollisberg because I felt the pain, and if you just saw the replay, it snapped. Like Achilles is no joke, man. And I'm not even gonna lie, I felt so bad for the guy. And yes, I show emotion because I can understand. You push yourself so hard, and then this happens, and you can't play, you can't walk on it. Like it's messed up. But I will say, SGA, that's true leadership because he checked on him. Like that goes a long way, and to sum all this up and everything. OKC, they took advantage. They took advantage of the injury, and I hate to say that. Not saying that the injury was a good thing because it's not. I'm just saying that in reality, when a star player gets hurt, that's your time to take advantage of that because Indiana couldn't really. They kept pushing, but they couldn't push any further with Hollinsburg out. So shout out to OKC, well deserved. I think that young core is going to be dangerous in the future, but there's some things to work on.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna start by saying this. I had the Thunder winning in six, but I kept saying the whole series like you can never count out the Pacers. And to start off game one, it looked like Halliburton was hitting all of his 3-point shots. The Pacers, they were up a little bit, and it looked like this could be like a competitive game, like Michael said, and with maybe a 3-point shot or just like a close 1-2 point game. I thought it was gonna be like that. I thought
Mhm.
we were like set up for that. I remember like texting in our little broadcast channel, like, hey, we're set up for like a classic game. And then like I just felt so bad because like 5 minutes later, Halliburton went down with the injury, and you could see like that sucked the life out of the Pacers team and the Thunder team. Because
Yeah.
after that, it was like they were both just playing like slow ball, and you never want to see your star player go down. But I think after halftime and the Thunder kind of like shook back, I think they kind of really took advantage of that because the Pacers went on a little scoring drought in the third quarter, and that's what really gave the Thunder their lead. And like Michael said, you never want to see a player get hurt, but when the star player is hurt, teams can take advantage of that. And the Pacers roster just could not match with what the Thunder had without Halliburton. And it sucks to say that because everybody on their team was playing their part, but they just weren't able to compete. And you thought Siakam would have done more, but he just didn't do anything. But I would say I'm not gonna say he didn't do anything, but he didn't do enough needed to get them to win that title. But I will give like my shout out because they played to the final buzzer. They were still
Mhm.
trying to draw fouls, still trying to get to the line, and it looked like for a little moment they had hope, but
Right.
stuff happens. But I mean, like you said, Michael, I also props to SGA like to go and talk to Halliburton after, make sure he is okay. That is leadership right there.
Yeah, it was
That
high
is
class.
that
True
is your
leadership.
finals
True
MVP right
leadership.
there. But with that being said, next year with Halliburton being out, that leaves, and we already saw this playoffs. We saw a bunch of players go down with the Achilles injuries. We saw Lillard, we saw Tatum, we saw Halliburton, and I think I'm forgetting somebody else. I know it's on the top of my head. I can't remember right now.
I think it was
Damian
just the
Leonard.
three.
It was only 3, yeah.
It
I
was
think it
three.
was just the three. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
but this leaves the East like next year wide open. So starting with Adam, what team do you think, can like take advantage of like a weak Eastern Conference next year and really take the leap to like, be a top seed and make that championship push?
Yeah. Well, one final thought. Shout out to Benedict Mathurin, who was the guy fighting until the end, ended up with a 20-point double-double. And then TJ McConnell, who at one point had scored 12 points straight. Like, they did not give up and, yeah, gave it their best till the end. Just ran out of gas a little bit. But, yeah, East for next year, it's, as you said, fully wide open. I wouldn't really be surprised if the Detroit Pistons make a run. Cade Cunningham's really coming into his own. He reminds me of Luka Doncic a little bit, the way he plays, the way he just stuffs the stat sheet. And then you got Orlando Magic, who just made a big trade to get Desmond Bane. They look now like they're in pretty much a win now mode after giving up so many firsts to get him. They've got a great core there with Banchero as well and Franz Wagner. So as you said, with like the wide open East, the Celtics are going to be missing Tatum. So those are definitely two teams that I would watch out for. Hand it off to Ben. Thoughts on the East next year?
I'm looking at the Atlanta Hawks and the New Orleans Pelicans as sort of potential, on the come up sort of teams. We saw some teams last year, including the Pacers. I mean, I went to a Pacers game in December, like I've said before, and I would have never thought that it would end up in the NBA Finals, months later. So it's really interesting to see how teams kind of go throughout the season and how they progress. But I like how Atlanta has surrounded Trae Young, especially during this offseason. And then also for the New Orleans Pelicans, they still have that, that Zion Williamson presence. Does he have a better season? Does he complete this season? Bearing some injuries that
if
he's,
his
been
off the
known
court
to have
issues
in the
don't
past.
get in the way.
And also that, yes, Adam, also that's a very good point. But yeah, nonetheless, I've liked what both of these teams have done throughout the offseason, and maybe we do see a New York Knicks resurgence as well. But kind of the scary part with the New York Knicks is, what is their head coaching plan? Still haven't hired a head coach yet. So we'll see what happens with the New York Knicks. Round 2 of the NBA draft is tonight. So they have pick number 50 or 52, I believe. So hopefully they make use of their offseason woes more. But those are two teams I'm kind of looking at in this offseason going, I agree with the Pistons as well. Cade Cunningham's a purified hooper. So the East is wide open, like we said. Michael, what are some of your teams that you're looking at next year to make a resurgence or a push that they didn't last year?
I'm looking more at well, first, before I give out my opinion, I appreciate you putting the Pelicans out there, because, with the new management, the CEO that we have, and the push that we made in the first round, it's I kind of like the draft picks that we have. The only thing I could consider is, Zion and, can John Dumas, our new CEO of basketball operations, can he, you know, continue doing what he did with the draft, but can he, kind of like reshape the roster a little bit? In a way, I could see the Pelicans in that, but that's not really my selection. But to give you my pick, I'm gonna say I'm probably gonna go with like either the Cavaliers or the New York Knicks. Um, and I'm gonna say the Cavaliers first because last season they won 64 games last season, and their core remains intact. I wrote all this down. Uh, but the only thing I'm suggesting is that they have the experience and the talent to compete for the championship. I don't think uh, the Cavaliers have lost anything. Um, but as far as like the Eastern Conference landscape, uh, with key players on Indiana Pacers and the Boston Celtics likely out for a significant period of time due to injury. But yeah, it's looking more like the Cavaliers might be the uprise, and then you got the New York Knicks, also considering a strong contender. The Knicks were tied with the Cavaliers, and both in some betting odds are and coming off conference finals appearances. Um, but
Andrew
honestly, I just
actually wants to coach the Knicks too. We'll see if that happens
right.
though.
So I really wouldn't be surprised if the New York Knicks made some noise. Um, and I really wouldn't be surprised if the Cavaliers because you know they kind of got embarrassed because they were the number one seed in the Eastern Conference and they lost it. They lost it, and that clear. And let me also make that clear. It don't matter what seed your team is, you can lose that shit. And the Cavaliers, they
Mhm.
lost their number one spot because they felt like they were, they since they were number one seed, they didn't really have to compete. But Indiana was like fourth or fifth seed in the Eastern Conference,
Yep.
and they surpassed a lot of teams, and that just tells you. So I think the Cavaliers are going to go on a revenge tour. They are going to come back, but I think they're going to come back even stronger because there's no way you're going to tell me that the Cavaliers lost that number one seed and they're not going to take that personally. I would, if I had the number one seed and I lost, I would take that very personally. So yeah, I got the Cavaliers and the Knicks because the Knicks also have a grudge, or I wouldn't say a grudge, but more of like a revenge kind of thing, like a revenge hunger. Like the Pacers took this from us, we're gonna come back, but we're gonna come back even stronger than we were before. Um, I just feel like when it comes down to the New York Knicks and the Cavaliers, they're gonna be the most hunger into getting that finals appearance and possibly a championship, without a doubt.
Yeah, they definitely got to be the favorites. Those two teams for sure.
Yeah.
Juice, your thoughts on the East landscape?
I mean, I'm just gonna like stay like this. It sucks like to see what happened, like what injuries can do to a team. The Celtics basically are breaking up their team after that Tatum injury. They've already traded away Porzingis,
Drew
and
Holiday.
yeah, and Drew Holiday
Drew
as well.
Holiday.
So that's two major
Mhm.
players to that championship run they had 2 years ago. But even then, now that just opens up a wide Eastern Conference. And what I think, like Michael said, the Cavs and the Knicks are the two teams that you got to be on the watch for that can really like. I really think right now, as of right now on paper, there is, and we haven't got to really NBA free agency yet, but as of right now, I just don't think that there is any team in the Eastern Conference Finals aside from like the Pistons and the Magic are like just the two front runners in the Eastern Conference Finals last year. Those are your top teams. You retain most of your guys. Of course, yeah, the Knicks don't have a head coach, but I think closer to the season we'll get a head coach. And I think maybe that would be better for the Knicks. Maybe that'll be what they need to get over the hump. Cavs, they can last playoffs. You can say that their injury bug it hurt them.
It's true.
Maybe next playoffs they don't have an injury bug. So I really do think the Western. I'm not the Western, but the Eastern Conference is open for. You could see a bunch of teams make a push, but the two main teams that stand out to me right now are the Knicks and the Cavs. But two teams I would say watch out for or the Magic and the Pistons. Magic just got Desmond Bain. I think that's going to complement Pablo Banchero perfectly. And I think what you call it? What was the other team I just said? I just forgot. Oh, it's from
Pistons.
yeah, the
Pistons.
Pistons. Yeah,
Kate
Pistons.
Cunningham.
I think Kate. You just keep building off of Kate Cunningham's success from last season, but Milwaukee, depending on what Giannis does, that's a
Yeah.
question. You really got to see where Giannis goes first, or if he stays with Milwaukee. Because I think if he stays with Milwaukee, they could also be a clear front runner to go for a title. But with that being said, transferring over into the NBA draft, we saw a lot go down. We saw Cooper Flag go to Dallas, and it wasn't really no surprise. We kind of figured that after uh what you call it, the lottery draft. But it was a few crazy picks that went on. And before I pass the mic around, I'm just gonna start with my biggest winners from the draft. And I'm gonna start with the Spurs. I think you add Dylan Harper next to your guards in Wemby with Fox, Castle, Wemby, and then you still got a Chris Paul you can learn from. I think he's in the best situation right now. Two, I think the Jazz are winners as well. Wait, let me say this first. I haven't said the Mavs yet because the Mavericks are obvious winners. Let me
Yeah.
just say that you get Cooper
Yeah.
Flag, a generational prospect. That's why I haven't listed them. I think they are obvious winners. We knew that weeks ago. But my second team right now will be the Jazz. You get Ace Bailey, and although he did not want to go there, if he sucks it up and plays, he could be a generational player for that organization, especially if they keep building around him. If Utah doesn't do the best next year, they can get a top pick in next year's draft. And I forgot the name of the prospect out of Utah, but I'm hearing some rumors that he could be going to Utah if they get the first overall pick. Also, let me see. I had one more team. Y'all will probably have to come back to me. Oh, the Suns. I think the Suns are the next team that, had a win in the draft. After they traded KD, we were wondering, okay, maybe is this going to be a down year for the Suns? But in trading KD so far, they've gotten three young players: Jalen Green, Mark Williams, and Kuman Malawach. Keep a name out, keep a watch out for him. He's an amazing center. He can learn behind Mark Williams,
Mhm.
and he doesn't have all the pressure on him to since he's a rookie. He doesn't have to start. He doesn't have to have all the pressure on him. He can learn behind Mark Williams, and Mark Williams is young too. That's two fresh legs for you. So I think the Suns right now, if they manage free agency well, I think they could be a team in the West to look out for. Not saying a scary contender, but a team that can make a playoff push. I still got faith in the Suns right now and what they're doing, especially with Bradley Beal coming off the bench. And like you said, Adam, in a what you call it before, if he wants to go somewhere that you can actually be traded to, that's valuable assets you can get from right there. But only time will tell. But actually, passing the mic off to Michael first, what were your thoughts on the draft? Did you have any winners? Did you have any losers?
Um, yeah, so obviously the winner was Dallas with Cooper Flag. Um, that was one of the biggest prospects in recent years, no doubt about that. Um, I would say the Mavs got off lucky with getting Cooper Flag at the number one pick, with the lottery and stuff like that. Um, was it a need for them? Yes and no, but you know I guess the Lord was in their favor. So I guess the Lord saw that they needed Cooper Flag, with Kyrie Irving, Anthony Davis, and many other guys in that Maverick roster. Um, but I want to say the second team that I thought was a winner was I'm gonna say the Pelicans because I really feel like we attacked at a much higher level than what I expected because we had we had two first round picks in the first round. We had the seventh and the 23rd pick. Now I think Jeremiah Fears was one of the top 10 prospects in the first round of this draft. Now I
Okay.
wanted to go with Ace. I wanted to go with my guy Ace because I wanted him to be a Pelican. Because like I said in the group chat, he was my first option. Then it was Trey Johnson. Then it was not Justin, Jeremiah Fears. But both of those guys were taken before the Pelicans could pick at seven. So Jeremiah Fears, he's a baller. He has a great shooting range. He has great physicality. He has great footwork, great speed for a guard. I think for the Pelicans, we do need to upgrade more at that point guard position because we got my guy. I can't think of his name right now, but he's been a big key factor of getting steals for the Pelicans and stuff like that. Um, and then also we traded the 23rd, and we got the 13th pick, which I was kind of surprised that we traded that pick. But I saw the vision because we do need a big. We don't really have a big center. So when we got I can't think of his name right now, but when we got that center out of
Eric Queen.
Indiana, I mean not Indiana. Yeah, it was it was it was a shock to me because watching the college basketball playoffs tournament, sorry, he was a big factor to Maryland's scoring. Like the guy is tall, he's big, he got great physicality, and great movement for a center. And to me, he's the all-around center that I think the Pelicans really need because we didn't really have a center that could, do more than just set screens and pass the ball. Because I'm big on centers being able to shoot, being able to dribble. Hey, if a center can cross, I'm all for it. But I want to say the Mavericks, the Pelicans, and the San Antonio Spurs. And like you said, Deuce, um, the Spurs took control. They took care of what they needed. They took care of their strengths. They got Harper and Bryant strengthening their core around Victor and Chris Paul. I think the Spurs can be dangerous. I think the Pelicans can be dangerous. We all know the Mavericks can be dangerous. We ain't got to sit here and throw them out there. We already know what that is. but um, but yeah, I'm gonna say the Mavericks, the San Antonio Spurs, and the Pelicans really surprised me um, in the draft, especially the Pelicans. Shout out to our new CEO of basketball operations, John Dumers. He really took care of business yesterday.
No,
You want to
Adam.
go next, Ben?
Yeah, I was gonna-
Deuce, what's your thoughts?
Yeah. Oh, I'm gonna go real quick, and then I'm gonna sort of leave
Yeah.
a question about also the KD trade, so Adam, can get into that a little bit, and then go into the draft. But I agree with Deuce in terms of the Phoenix Suns adding all these young players. I mean, they had Kaman Malamouche from Duke, 7'1" center, and he had a great career over there at Duke. And although players like Jalen Green were inconsistent in the playoffs, I kind of as far as the Houston Rocket goes, in my opinion, I thought they had given a little bit too much in terms of their future, capital of the team. And, we know how hard the West is going to be next year. But, obviously, I agree with all that's been said so far about the Dallas Mavericks. Cooper Flag gets to learn behind AD and a Kyrie Irving. That's just a crazy luxury to have your rookie year, in my opinion. And with the Suns adding a center and all the pieces they've added, I still think Dylan Brooks is, a decent, defender. So I will say the Phoenix Suns won that trade. And I guess the question that I'll ask Adam that he can kind of go into and then get into his draft winners and losers here is that did you think that the Houston Rockets gave up too much to acquire a Kevin Durant that's, aging? This kind of puts a kind of, 2-year max kind of pressure on Houston to win a championship here. And I guess you can also tell me if, Houston lost in this or if the Phoenix Suns won in the draft, and then you can give the rest of your thoughts.
I honestly I think the trade was good for both sides. I don't think the Rockets gave up too much. Just because at the end of the day, like they're looking for that go-to scorer in the fourth quarter. Kevin Durant provides that. He's not the only time he hasn't scored over 25 points per game in his career was his rookie year. So that's saying something. That's now they've got the go-to scorer. And he basically is a walking 50, 40, 90. Almost every single season. He shot over 50% from the field for the last like 7 or 8 years. So I think they're a huge threat now. The West is the wild, wild West for a reason. Thunder are the clear favorites, but after that, like you could pick either of the LA teams depending on who they get. If the Lakers get a big, I've heard Walker Kessler is possibly in the mix. Possibly favorites for Bam Adebayo as well. And then the Clippers, they're always going to be in the mix. You can't ever rule out the Warriors. But the Rockets, I mean, they're already.
Sorry.
No.
Yeah, I was just gonna say real quick that I thought with like the Houston Rockets, the biggest thing for me is why I say like they traded away some of a lot of their future was because I feel like if they did trade for a Kevin Durant, that they should have kept a younger Jalen Green, even with his inconsistency, because does Houston go after another playmaker to help KD now? But continue. Sorry.
No, you're good. I think Amon Thompson's going to come into his own offensively some more. They just re-signed Fred VanVleet. Jabari Smith Jr. they were able to keep, so he can play. So basically, Kevin Durant can play small forward for the first time since he was on the not the Thunder, on the Warriors. So, I mean, that's huge. We saw how good the Warriors were. Obviously, they were already a super team and then added Kevin Durant. But, yeah, I think the Rockets were already the 2 seed. You got to watch out for them. And then now they have that consistent scoring presence. And maybe Kevin Durant only has a couple of years left, but I mean, the kind of game he plays, he's so good in the mid-range game, and we saw the Thunder kind of revive that style of play this postseason. So I think they're huge threats. And getting into my NBA draft thoughts, I'll kind of gloss over some of the points we already knocked out, but I thought the Spurs killed it. Obviously, getting Dylan Harper, that was the for sure number 2 overall pick, the clear number 2. But Carter Bryant, I was expecting him to go before 14. So that was a steal at 14 after he fell all the way down there. He's just 19 years old, and he's got great length, and he's another one of those 3-and-D players, and we've seen how important those 3-and-D players are with the Thunder's run with Alex Caruso and Lou Dort. So he's got a lot of work to like get to the promised land and to his max potential, basically. But yeah, he's a forward that's got great length and versatility. Moving into the Jazz, getting Ace Bailey at 5. I personally would have still probably taken him 3 or 4. He comps really well to Jason Tatum, so I mean that's a lot of hype and a big comparison to live up to. But he could be the Jazz's the Utah Jazz next superstar. Let's see. Oh yeah, and then Walter Clayton Jr. They're able to trade for Walter Clayton Jr. We saw how good he was in the Florida Gators in the NCAA tournament during that run. Some people comparing his game to Stephen Curry. I'm not ready to say that he's the next Stephen Curry, but he does have a lot of elements to his game. He's got the clutch factor. He nails the 3-ball. One of the better shooters in the draft. Other winners, I got the Suns. They were able to get within minutes somehow. I don't think they thought that I think we're all kind of butchering the name, so I'm probably going to do it too. But come on, Maluak, if I'm saying that correctly. And he was like, there's more tears in the NBA draft than I've ever seen. And it was kind of cool to watch. And like he was just shedding tears the entire time on stage. And he said he basically felt like he was representing the entire country of Africa and inspiring kids there to follow their NBA dreams. So, and then, yeah, they're getting Mark Williams and Maluak to fill out that core, because after the recent trades they've made, they basically only had guards on their roster. So now they get 2 young big men that can do rebound and do all the little things, and that's really important for the Suns potentially still being contenders. Moving on to the Nets, they were like one of the first teams to ever have this many first round picks, but I am not the biggest fan of their picks. But I'll focus on some of the positives. I really like Danny Wolf, their last selection. He's a 7-foot forward that's got some handles. So that could end up being a very, very good pick. Might end up being their best first round pick, but they basically just drafted guards, and a lot of the guards don't shoot very well. So they're going to have to come into their own, develop that shot, or we'll be looking back on this in a few years and just like, how did the Nets fumble all of these picks that they had? But Igor Demon was their top 10 pick that they had. He does have some potential. 6'8" guard, so I mean he's got the length, and he's not great defensively, but that's something that he could definitely grow into. But from what I was reading, he's rated as the best passer in the draft. So they're getting that playmaking from him. So the sky is probably the limit with him. He could definitely grow and end up being a very good player. And then, yeah, the Pelicans, I love the Jeremiah Fears pick. Some people see shades of Kyrie Irving with him. He's a great playmaker, a lot of versatility. But yeah, that's what I got for my winners in the draft so far. And we got round 2 basically starting right about now, or about 30 minutes.
Yes, we do.
Yep.
So basically, I'm gonna give my thoughts on the losers of the draft real quick before I get into the KD trade. My first loser of the draft was the Nets. Like Adam said, you get 5 first-round picks, and we really don't see this often, if ever, really. And I don't know how you butchered that up like so badly. That's like just the best I can say.
Yeah.
It's like really hard to look at the positives, because it's just you butchered up 5 first picks. Like, you can really say you went 0 for 5. I feel like there's other team needs, and you just went and drafted guards.
They could have
and
drafted a
maybe
whole lineup if they wanted to.
and yeah, maybe it was like, okay, because D'Lo is a free agent and we don't know if he's going to resign yet. It's okay to draft like just one guard, as a backup. But they went and drafted, like you said, a whole fat five of guards, and that's just something we don't see. The second loser I have of this draft is Ace Bailey. Like I was telling Adam earlier, that just goes to show you're just not bigger than the program. And we hear that a lot. No person is bigger than a program. And yes, we want to see players. We've seen it happen before. Like players try to like move their way around in the draft, but ultimately the NBA franchise or the organization gets the last laugh, and we saw that with the Utah Jazz. So we saw that Ace kind of went to go to New Orleans, Washington, or the Nets, and he didn't get that. In fact, he was on the way from the Wizards. So I kind of feel you kind of got to feel for him, but he's just also kind of one of my losers of the draft. He didn't get what he wanted after doing all of that. But like I said in my winner part, if he plays and embraces it, he could be set up for a bright future, especially if Utah and Danny Ainge build around him right. Also, for my other loser, I hate to do this, Michael. I like the Pels. I like the I had too many questions with the Pelicans draft. It kind of like the Pelicans have had a track record of not being the best recently. And with all their injury bugs and stuff, and it just doesn't make sense to me that you trade next year's first to get back into the first. I don't, as of right now, because we don't know how the Pelicans are going to perform next season, and you basically just trade away your pick, which could be a protected lottery pick at a point to the Hawks, and the Hawks could get a top 10 pick. So that just didn't sit right with me. I think overall, just that those three were kind of the losers. I didn't really look too far towards the later ends of the draft, but the second round is coming, so we'll see how these teams finish up the draft. Lakers have a pick today, so I hope they do something right with that and they continue to help building around Luka.
Yeah,
Which
I'm with you. Oh, I'm sorry, dude. Go ahead, man.
I know you're all good, Michael. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying that because I totally forgot that I never gave out my losers. I'm just gonna say the teams and give a short response right quick. I had the Brooklyn Nets as my losers as well, and I wrote this down. It's a good thing I wrote this short. But I basically said despite of having 5 first round picks, like everyone just said, the Nets. And I put this link. I'll copy and paste this link. But the Nets Yahoo Sports report notes their focus on drafting guards. It was with most of their picks, including Edgar. I think I'm saying his name right. Demon, something like that. Edgar Demon. Um,
Yeah, it's Igor Demon, I think. Yeah.
yeah, was seen as questionable. And I'm gonna leave it at that because I will go into depth on that. But that was kind of like surprising me because you have 5 first round picks, and it was really kind of confusing to me as well. But I'm not gonna say too much on that to bypass some time. But the next team I had as losers was the Portland Trailblazers, and the Trailblazers traded back and then selected a player, Cedric Howard, that some analysts found surprising. Now, in a way, that was surprising to me too. And I don't really know. I don't really know. So hopefully, these guys that the Brooklyn Nets chose and the Portland Trailblazers chose, hopefully they can give me some kind of reasoning or some kind of change of heart, change of mind. But those were my two losers. But Deuce, I totally understand why the Pelicans, and I can understand for everyone why the Pelicans would be considered as losers in this draft. I don't take that to offense because yes, we have been known in the past to not be very good, but I'm kind of glad that we let go of Griffin because he wasn't really doing much as a CEO for us. Some of the decision making he was making was kind of off to me. But John Dumas, the our new basketball CEO of operations, he really took a dive, especially with getting Jeremiah Fears. I feel really good about him. He seems ready to go. Um, Now, as far as the trade, yeah, it didn't make sense to me either. But I guess Derek Quinn, like I said, he's one of the top centers in the draft, and I guess the vision that John DeRose was thinking was he's going to be gone before we even get to 23. Now, like I said, I really hate that we did that, give away our future pick to the Atlanta Hawks, but hopefully, some way we can work our way back around that. But despite of that, I can't take that away from Derek Quinn because I think that is a steal pick because we do need a center. We do need a center. We got guards. We even got Jordan Poole. Who I'm kind of excited about. But at the same time, I don't like to trade, but I like to pick. If that makes sense. Like I like to pick, but I don't like to trade. So I can understand why a lot of people put Pelicans as the losers, despite of the trade. But we got to be honest, and I'm gonna call it like it is. Jeremiah Fears, aka Zero Fears, he
Super
is going to
crazy.
be right. I like that. He's going to be a huge asset to what John Dumas is trying to do with the Pelicans. And I think the future is bright for New Orleans. But as far as some of the players, we can't really do nothing right now with the roster that we have. But hopefully, somehow, some way, with some trades, we can be able to make some noise. But
Yeah,
do something.
I
Get back
mean,
to you, man.
I most definitely think that the Pelicans. I like the Jordan Poole, trade, and in a world where Zion Williamson stays healthy, the Pelicans with the young roster that they're currently building around him, if in a world where he was healthy, I feel like the Pelicans would be a team to compete in the West. But I'm just saying the Pelicans just have a track record of previous
Yeah,
injuries, but we don't know what's going to come in the future.
sure.
These players, they could have a perfectly healthy season, and these players pay off for New Orleans in a big way. And the pick that they traded to Atlanta don't even matter next year. But just in a world that if the Pelicans are not up to play and up to par, what y'all fans think they should be, like over 500, do y'all question that, like, hey, maybe we shouldn't have traded this pick because now we don't have it? And like I was telling Adam earlier, I look at it in the NBA draft, like the difference between the NFL and the NBA draft. In the NBA, I feel like your first 5 picks are really your most valuable picks in the first round, and your other
Yeah,
first round draft picks you can trade them around. But getting into the KD trade, I think I'm gonna have to agree with Adam on that when I say it's kind of like I didn't see no winners or losers. I mean, I didn't really see no losers in the trade. At first everybody was kind of I think everybody was overreacting at first. About Jalen Green getting like switched out. But here's what I look at it from: you get the Rockets get KD, who's been consistent, averaging 25, 26 all of his career. And like Adam said, he gets to play the small forward for the first time since the Warriors. And he really thrived at that small forward position with the Warriors. We saw that when he won 2 championships. So I think that really does benefit Houston, and Houston is retaining key guys, is signing an extension, so he's going to be here longer. You're in Jabari Smith Jr. All these players are
And
coming back, so you're
Sengun,
retaining
all
your core.
star.
You, yeah, and so you're adding KD next to young developing stars, and in a competing West, they could compete for a title. I really do believe they could compete for a title. Now, win one, that's where the debates rise. But now switching over to the Suns, I think you get, like I said earlier, you turn KD into 3 young players. I like that to put around Devin Booker, Plus you got Bradley Beal coming off the bench. Plus, not to mention, you still got 5 second round picks that you can easily, one of them could be a gem. We never know. That you could fill out for key depth players and rotational guys. So I think this trade benefited the Suns in the long run and benefited the Rockets right now. And it was a good trade for both teams. But jumping into our NFL segment, the Bears have had an interesting offseason. And this is Caleb Williams' sophomore year. And we see a lot of quarterbacks go into their sophomore slump. But I don't think this is going to happen to Caleb Williams. He's added first, let me say their front office has done an incredible job building around Caleb Williams. Sometimes front offices don't know how to do that correctly, but the Bears, they came into this offseason, they came into the draft with a clear mind, put pieces around Caleb Williams and give him protection. And I think they really did that. But something that is really standing out to me is the Bears running back room. And I think we could be in for a pretty good, interesting battle coming up in the season. But Adam, would you like to give your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Real quick, just a couple final thoughts on the NBA draft. We didn't mention the Wizards, so they were able to ship Jordan Poole, but then they got Trey Johnson 5th overall, and he's by far the best shooter in the draft. So he's going to get heavy minutes right away. So just kind of it's like changing of the guard for the Wizards, and it's can give them a lot of excitement for Washington Wizards fans that have not had too much to root for lately and over many years now. Honestly, dating back to like the Gilbert Arenas days, which is way back when. And Yang Hansen,
Wall, man,
who I've heard could be like the next great Chinese player. I've heard people even say he's like the Chinese Jokic when you turn on the tape. So Blazers might have something there. He was projected to go a little bit later, and then he ended up going in the teens. So we'll see if they have found a diamond in the rough there. But yeah, moving on to the Bears. I expect them to be a really good team. They're one of my dark horse teams to really make a run. We've talked about this on previous podcasts. I have them as going 10-7 and just sneaking into that last wild card spot on the NFC side. It's going to be, if not the toughest division in football, one of two. So, I mean, it's going to boil down to if they can win the home games, because the Vikings are really good at home. The Lions are great at home. The Packers also really, really good at home. So it's going to be a dogfight in that division. And we'll see who can come out on top. But you can't surround Caleb Williams with more weapons. You got him one of the best offensive minds in football now with Ben Johnson. So diving into the running back room a little bit, DeAndre Swift, still the incumbent starter, but he's had some really bad rushing grades over the last few seasons. So we'll see if he can bounce back. He fits they nickname Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery Sonic and Knuckles. So DeAndre Swift would be like the clear favorite to be that Sonic role or the lightning role, quick, speedy guy. But then it gets interesting when you get into the Knuckles role or the Thunder with Rashawn Johnson, who I think is going into year 3. He's not really quite lived up to like being a great running back yet, but he's still got a lot of potential. He's a bruiser, so he could be the guy that gets goal line touches. But I really want to talk about Kyle Monangai for a little bit. And he was drafted in the 7th round, so this could go a lot of different ways, but he's been turning some heads. He really good in pass protection, which a lot of rookie running backs aren't. So we'll see. I also just read an article before he went on air that he could end up being a surprise cut, because 7th rounders get cut all the time, but that doesn't mean he won't be on the team. He could end up getting signed back on the practice squad. But I do think that he also has a very good shot at playing that David Montgomery role in Ben Johnson's offense. Just a little bit of stats last year. He had 6 games with 150 or more rushing yards. Didn't play in a great conference, but still very impressive stats. And forced 73 missed tackles, which in 2023, which was tied for 8th in the nation. So, he's got the skills, he's got the tools. So we'll see if he can, first of all, make the roster. Always tough for a 7th round pick. And then we'll see if he can actually have a role this season on the Bears. But yeah. Thoughts on this, Ben? Or thoughts on the Bears?
Yeah, so I wouldn't disagree with you there. Talking about the Chicago Bears, it's definitely going to be a much more interesting year that they've had in recent memory, going into Caleb Williams next year. But now they have new head coach Ben Johnson, which was the former offensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions. And I think that's going to be one of the main things that kind of makes this very interesting, because not only do you have Ben Johnson, that used to be, offensive schemer for the Detroit Lions, but they literally brought the Detroit Lions running back with them, DeAndre Swift. Now, do they have, some sort of offensive intel whenever they play the Detroit Lions? I think that's going to be pretty interesting to see whenever they do play each other. But as far as Caleb Williams goes, and the way his running back room is sort of shaping, I agree. DeAndre Swift is more of that, sonic role, that lightning speed, quickness. But I think the running back 2 role would be interesting to see how it sort of pans out, because obviously, like we mentioned before, they did draft Kyle Monangai out of Rutgers University. Shout out Jersey, and then also Rashawn Johnson. Also, think the main reason why this running back 2 position is going to be pretty interesting to see who comes out on top is because we know DeAndre Swift's, kind of injury history wasn't totally super healthy last year. So does it happen again this year? Who steps up? We always know it's a, next man up mentality when it comes to any sport, but especially football. And I think the biggest question that we can ask ourselves when looking at this Chicago Bears team and Caleb Williams next year is exactly what we said about Bryce Young and the Carolina Panthers last week. How will Caleb Williams use all of these weapons to the best of his ability? Because this is not a running back, obviously, but they do have a Luther Burden in the room. It's rumored that he's going to have that kind of Debo Samuel 49ers role where you can just plug him in anywhere. So I think that's the biggest question we need to ask ourselves. And I think, honestly, a hot take here is that I think Bryce Young could have a better year than Caleb next year. That's my hot take, but I'm going to pass it over to Michael. Michael, what did you think about the, offseason additions for the Chicago Bears with their running back room, and how do you think this sort of pans out?
Well, honestly, and I'm gonna break this down as quick as I possibly can. Um, I did my research earlier today, and I broke this down into categories because it's not talked about much, but I feel like if anybody, I need to address it. I don't disagree with none of what you guys are saying, but the Chicago Bears running room, while they potentially have some positives, also presents a few concerns that could be considered dangerous, or at least limiting the team's offseason progression. And what I mean by that is, first thing, projected weaknesses. The running back room is projected to be among the worst in the NFL in the 2025 season, according to ranking in the Pro Football Focus. Now that's just from Pro Football Focus wise. Um, Number two, lack of depth of impact of players. The Bears did not the Bears did not significantly address the running back position in 2025 offseason. Failing to sign an impact player in free agency, while they did get the 7th round pick, like Adam just said, and Kyle,
Guy.
I'm not really good with
Monangai.
names.
No, I
That guy,
got you.
yeah. It's still, I just don't really see him as a big addition as far as for the Bears. Like I said, the running back room really did not get addressed as much as it should. Now, potential trade concerns. The Bears were linked to the Buffalo Bills running back James Cook, who wants a significant contract extension, right?
That'd be a crazy signing for them.
It would have been. With DeAndre Swift already on the contract, though, adding Cook would have been would be financially unlikely because of the fact that how are the Bears cap space? Even if they did try to get James Cook, because he's not just any kind of running back that we can just snap and trade him. Because at the same time, once you trade these players, you got to sign them, right? That's also a question. The Bears financially were going to be unlikely to get him. Now, however, I did write down some counterpoints that I think is good for the Bears, as far as the production that they did. Now, potential current players. Despite the concerns, DeAndre Swift, love that guy. Had a productive first season with the Bears, finishing with 959 rushing yards, 6 touchdowns. He's also motivated, in my opinion, to improve in 2025. I mean, in 2026 or 2025 season, I,
And now they've got the offensive line to do it.
right. That was also my next point.
Joe
The
Tua.
offensive line improvements. The Bears' offensive line may be improving, which could create more opportunities for the running backs. The Bears, and like Duke just said, Bears took a huge offseason setback, or not setback. Look at the roster and be like, we need to address our offensive line. And I think Caleb Williams could end up having a better season than his last because the offensive line, they were no good. They were okay, but they were kind of terrible as far as protecting and pocket time. So I think that Caleb Williams can have a good season because of the offensive line that the front office took a huge stab on. So, and that can go a long way. And then my last thing, coaching strategy.
Mm-hmm.
Running backs coach Eric. I don't know how to
Eric
say his
Bien-
last name.
Eric Bieniemy.
Yeah, Eric Bieniemy is known for wanting multiple dimensional backs who can contribute in both passing and special team games, which could benefit players like Mohagany. Like I said before, there are positives and there are negatives. But as far as the running back room is concerned, I see something there. But if I'm the Bears, they need to take a little bit more of a look in that running back room. Now, is it terrible? No. But I actually like what the Bears have kind of done with the offensive line other than the running back room. And I honestly think Caleb Williams, Bryce Young can have a skyrocketing season, really more of an improvement season because they both have a better offensive line. And then they also have a better receiving core. But that's my
Receiving
take.
core is great.
I could be wrong, but I could be right. I don't know. We don't know until the preseason starts, which is what I'm kind of waiting on. But that's my take. I don't know who else to pass the mic to. I think it's Deuce
Deuce,
next.
you want to jump
Deuce,
in?
what's your opinion, bro?
I mean, I'm not gonna say too much, on this, but I mean, like we really don't know until the preseason or even the regular season because we see players that are on new teams or players not live up to the same expectations. But with that being said, I think the Bears can be perfectly fine. It may not have like the best roster, but I think they'll have a good enough roster to get the job done to help K Williams succeed. You know, I think I like even with the Cowboys running back room, I kind of had my doubts on it, but they went and signed Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders, and they went and picked up Jadon Blue and Phil Maffa in the draft. So I mean, and like in my opinion, I think when the preseason rolls around, we get this preseason training camp rolls around, and we see how these players really perform against other teams. I think that's when you get to really make like the clear decision of like, okay, this is what we like, this is what we don't like. This player works well for our offense, this player doesn't work well. But like you said, only the time will tell. But jumping into the AFC side, Aaron Rodgers, he signed with the Steelers just last week, but he has just came out and said that this will most likely be his last year in the NFL. And I just want to hear what y'all's quick thoughts is. And I'm gonna get mine first. Let me just say this out the way.
Go right ahead, bro.
I, you know, I'm glad that he's with the Steelers, but this offseason I was an advocate for him to retire. But I think he's going one last ride with Mike Tomlin in Pittsburgh, and I think he actually enjoys being in Pittsburgh, and hopefully there's no locker room drama, and he can finish out his career in Pittsburgh, just playing football and playing the game he loves.
Yeah, I honestly don't have that much to say about Aaron Rodgers. Compared to last week, we did get into the A-Rod signing when it did happen, but A-Rod's entering his 21st season, and that's older than me at this point. So props to him for that. I mean, we see a bunch of legends across sports still playing at a high age and just still competing at a high level. But yeah, after this year, he came on and said on the Pat McAfee show that this was basically his last ride. And, you know, there are some pieces here to work with on the Steelers, like on defense. Hopefully TJ Watt is still not re-signed, by the way. Thought I'd mention that. But yeah, there are some pieces for Aaron Rodgers to work with on the Steelers team. But is it just enough for him to, reach his goal? Because we've mentioned time and time again, it's like, what are you really trying to accomplish when you sign Aaron Rodgers? Because you know that he's basically a 1-year rental. We experienced that with my Jets, sort of the rental kind of aspect of it. But yeah, we're just going to see what happens with A-Rod in his last season. It's going to be, hopefully he rides into the sunset, or it might just come to, bite him. But hopefully rooting for the best for A-Rod this year.
Yeah. I mean, shout out to my guy Joe in the comment section real quick. He pointed out the Bears have to deal with Minnesota and Detroit. That's where the Ben Johnson's problems lie.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely agree with that. One thing that people have been saying about Detroit is they might drop a few games just because they lost Ben Johnson and they lost Aaron Glenn, two of the best assistants in the league. So I don't see them like having the best record in the NFL anymore, but I think they'll still win the division and still be pretty dang good contenders. And Aiden Hutchinson's going to be on a revenge tour after being like the leading defensive player of the year candidate.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't really touch too much on the receiver weapons. So, I mean, DJ Moore, he's been very good for many years now. Rome Odunze should be really good going into his sophomore year. So Luther Burden being your wide receiver 3, it's like not many wide receiver cores are that deep. And then they added Colson Loveland at 10, and then they already have Cole Kmet. So, I mean, you can't ask for more weapons as far as passing weapons. And they're probably going to play a good amount of 12 personnel, considering they have both of the tight ends. They're both capable blockers. But diving into Aaron Rodgers real quick, I'll just make the quick case for it. And people have been saying Aaron Rodgers would have retired if he didn't think the Steelers had a chance and like an actual Super Bowl chance.
Mm-hmm.
And while that's probably a low possibility, I'll make the case. He always has made tight ends very, very good in his career. And Pat Freiermuth has been pretty dang good to start his career so far. And I think Pat Freiermuth is going to have a huge season with Aaron Rodgers because he loves to find his tight ends. Oh, yeah, it's I couldn't remember his name for a second, but Robert Tonyan is like not even a household name, but Aaron Rodgers almost made him a household name 1 year when he was still on the Packers. So I expect a big year out of Freiermuth. And what else does Aaron Rodgers do well? He throws the deep ball. You got DK Metcalf, who runs some of the best go routes in the league, mammoth of a human being, runs really fast. So I think he's going to have a big year. So, I mean, we'll see. The wide receiver 2 is a little shaky. Is it going to be Roman Wilson or is it going to be Calvin Austin who wins that wide receiver 2 role? But they both have a lot of potential too. Calvin Austin showed out for a few games with Russell Wilson under center last year. And then they already had Jalen Warren. They lost Najee Harris to the Chargers, but they added Caleb Johnson, who, in my opinion, is just that next bruiser, but he's got a little bit more of an all-around game than Najee Harris did. So I think he's going to be even better than Najee Harris. So with that defense, you never know. And they always find a way to eke out a game against the Ravens. Like the division games are always really tough. So, I mean, I like, honestly, last week I said I didn't think they were going to make the playoffs, but now I could see them sneaking into the playoffs, and then you never know. But it's a tough division, and yeah, it's gonna be a tough road for Aaron Rodgers this year. But he took less money, so they can potentially sign TJ Watt, who is still under contract, but he's looking for that big extension to try and match Myles Garrett and some of the other top pass rushers with how much they're getting paid. But any other last thoughts on this topic, or move on to the next topic, Deuce?
Michael, you had any thoughts on Aaron Rodgers retiring?
Or sorry.
No, you're good, Adam. But I'm gonna say this right quick. I've always had respect for Aaron Rodgers. He's always been a smart, talented, mobility, good arm strength kind of quarterback. But like I said before, even though he's 41, The real question here is, does he still have a little bit of gas in his tank? And what I mean by that is, like I said before, and I'm gonna say it again. I might be repeating myself, but like I said, I'm gonna say it again. He's 41, and a lot of people, think at that age, a lot of players retire. Drew retired. Oh shoot, sorry about that, guys.
All
Drew
good.
retired. Drew retired at 40 or 41. So, but Drew had to retire because he had more injuries than we knew. You know, Drew had from a foot injury all the way up to a shoulder injury, and there are reports now saying that he can't even use his right arm
Yeah,
to throw
that's
like he
sad.
used to. And that hurt me because that, like I said, I've been a Drew Brees fan since I was a kid, and you know, it hurts to hear that. So my main thought when it comes down to Aaron Rodgers at 41, does he still have the physicality, the body strength, the arm strength, the mind strength, the foot strength, because he just got over an Achilles injury. Does he still have what it takes to be a starting quarterback, to be a veteran, and to teach his young guys? Because his leadership and experience, and I wrote this down, his leadership and experience will be invaluable, and the Steelers can use this season to evaluate young talent for the post Rogers era. Because after Aaron Rodgers retires, they're gonna have to find someone to pick up the pace. Because Aaron Rodgers is only on 1 year. I don't expect him to do too much. He might make some noise, like Adam said, in the playoffs. But I don't see Aaron Rodgers making too much of an impact. He'll make an impact, but he won't make too much of a noise. Then, even though, yeah, they got DK Metcalf, I'm not saying that the Steelers won't be good. I'm just saying, you know, to keep it real and in reality terms, this is really going to this is really going to determine, is Aaron Rodgers still in good physical shape, and does he still
Great
have the
question.
arm strength to get the ball down the field? Can he still move the way he used to be? Because Aaron Rodgers used to be hard to get to tackle in when he's in the pocket. Can he still move despite him having that Achilles injury? So I think this is Aaron Rodgers' last chance. I think he should retire after this, but only the preseason and the regular season will tell. And that's something to keep a real close eye on, is Aaron Rodgers' physicality, and does he still have the arm strength to get the ball up and down the field at his
Hmm.
age?
I'm I know for me, my thoughts, and I know after the Aaron Rodgers signing, before the signing, I was always like even quick, to like I was always quick to give him like a predict how their schedule would play out. But I mean, as of late, I've been really like sitting down and just analyzing the roster. And the Steelers have a lot of vets on that team, but also they got players on the team that are unproven yet. And I see in the comments Joe mentions
There
Roman
you go.
Wilson.
Yeah.
I he didn't play last year due to an injury, but what he did at Michigan in his last year was incredible. If he
4.39
come,
speed too.
yes, so if he comes back, so I'm just gonna say this: if he comes back and plays up to par like how he did at Michigan, and your vets like DK, Fryermuth, and all your other receivers on the roster, if they perform up to par, you're running. If your offense performs up to par under Aaron Rodgers, I think the Steelers could be looking at a push to 7 to 9 wins. And that's just if the defense plays. If the defense plays well enough too. If you resign TJ Watt and your defense, literally, like I just keep saying, if your defense just plays well and your offense plays well, clicking with the defense under Aaron Rodgers, I think the series could be a very much 7 to 9 win team, and just maybe Mike Tomlin has another over 500 win season. But with that being said, jumping into our MLB segment, we have seen a lot of changes and a lot going on lately. I know in the AL it is kind of tight, as well as in the as in the NL as well. But before we give our MVP race and Adam gives us MVP race, I'm just gonna give my quick top 10 teams, and I'm gonna give my 3 games to look forward for. At 1, I got the Dodgers. 2, the Tigers. 3, the Astros. 4, the Cubs. 5, the Mets. 6, the Yankees. But that could be easily like changeable. Yet the Mets and the Yankees. Honestly, I don't even know how they were like put high on some of our other like predictions standings. But 7, I got the Phillies. 8, I got the Rays, which were a team I did not expect a lot from, but they are pretty solid. 9, the Brewers, and 10, the Padres, closing out my top 10 with my 3 games to watch. Cubs versus Astros. Both are sitting at 48 and 33, second place in their respective conferences. This will be a huge test. Who is the better team? We know we've heard all season that the Cubs have not really played any true teams, and they have. I mean, recently they just played the Tigers and they lost, but most definitely, I think that the Cubs can compete. Like I said, I got them sitting at 4 in my power rankings, and they could very much well be the 2 seed in some other people's power rankings. But this Astros team is a team that has shot out the gates in the AL West, taking one of the top 2 spots in the AL. Yes, and we don't like to see the Astros really succeeding. But they're the 2nd seed. So this Cubs Astros game will be a fun one. Next one, I got the Rangers versus Mariners. Rangers were down, and I'm gonna keep saying this. Yes, I didn't want to talk about the Rangers for a while, but they're slowly offensively and defensively, they're slowly starting to click again. They're just right behind the Mariners, sitting at 40 and 41, as the Mariners are sitting at 41 and 38. But also to note, the Rangers are coming off a win against the Orioles, and the Mariners are coming off a loss. Sorry, Adam, didn't want.
It's all good.
Yes,
all good.
but
Still got the series split.
Yeah, so this will be an interesting series tomorrow to see who takes the. Is it the second spot? So you can get that second spot in the AL,
Yep.
The AL West or the AL East or West.
Or
Yeah,
AL West, you had it right.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. So you can get the spot in the AL West, and then the third game is my team, the Blue Jays, and Benji's team, the Red Sox. Like I said earlier, the AL is already jam packed, all divisions, but the AL East is just it's a madhouse right now. And all these teams fighting for, really, I could say right now, getting to the first spot, because the Yankees, you only got the Blue Jays and the Rays just a few games back.
Yeah.
But the Blue Jays and the Red
Always a
Sox would be a
dogfight
pretty
there.
good game to see who can get that third spot. And, the Blue Jays are sitting at, I believe, 5 in the playoff picture right now. And the Red Sox are just a few games out the playoff picture. So that would be an interesting game. But those are my 3 games to look forward to. But passing the mic off to Adam, do you have your top 10?
Yeah. Right before I get into the baseball, I appreciate Joe and his comments and keeping us active. He said, "Do the Steelers sign Amari Cooper to add some quality depth there in the wide receiver core with just unproven weapons after DK Metcalf?" I think that definitely could happen. Another guy that's sitting there still in the free agent market is Keenan Allen. So either one of those guys would definitely be a guy that I think could get quick chemistry with Aaron Rodgers. They were both long-term vets. I think both have had 10-year careers, if not just around that. So yeah, that's a great point, Joe. Appreciate the comment. But diving into the MLB, so we got somewhat similar rankings, but we do actually have some differences. I got Dodgers at 1 as well. They're now matching the Tigers for the best record in the major leagues, and that roster is only going to get better as they get healthier. They've actually had, I forget the exact stat.
I swear I saw like 7 finalists on that All-Star list for the
Yeah,
Dodgers.
That's like the
It's
Dodgers
crazy.
lineup every year. It's like anyone in their lineup could be an all-star. That's how
Yeah.
overpowered the Dodgers are.
No, what I was going to say is they have had by far the most injuries in all of baseball. So that's wild that they've actually they're tying for the best record overall. But yeah, the roster's disgusting, and the pitching staff is only going to get better basically. So Tigers at 2. They just dropped 1 spot. They're still looking like one of the best teams in baseball. I got Cubs at 3. Astros, as much as I don't want to rank them this high, I got Astros at 4. They deserve it. Like you said, they're just right behind the Tigers for the best record in the American League. So they deserve it. I got Yankees at 5. Still going to stay as a top 5 team for me. Phillies at 6. I saw the ESPN power rankings come out today, and they had the Phillies at 3. That was kind of a red flag for me. that really surprised me because they've not been amazing lately. I think they're 4-6 in the last 10. So I got the Phillies dropping to 6, but they're still a great team. They're going to probably round into form. They still got Harper. I'm not sure if he's back from injuries yet, but he should be back soon. They got Schwarber, one of the home run leaders in baseball. Giants at 7. Rays at 8. Rays have just been on a great run lately. They're 7-3 in the last 10. Mets, I dropped all the way to 9, and it's not that they're not a great team. This is a weekly list. They're 2-8 in their last 10 games. So I got the Mets sliding down all the way to 9, and then the Brewers rounding at the top 10. But diving into the MVP race, so AL MVP race is probably the tightest race in baseball. NL's, it's looking like Shohei right now, but I'll get into that in a second. Aaron Judge is the leader for most people right now, but for some people it's a pick'em race right now because Cal Raleigh's doing something that's never been done before. He passed Johnny Bench for the most home runs ever in the first half by a catcher. He's actually one home run behind Ken Griffey Jr. for the second most home runs in the first half in Mariners history. He's at 32 right now, still leading the league. If he gets to 35, that would match Ken Griffey's all-time Mariners record in the first half. So, he's doing crazy things. And, I know I said he's a catcher already, but, I just want to, keep making that point that he is a catcher and he's doing things that no one has ever done. And he's matching Ken Griffey Jr., who's one of the – he was a first ballot, unanimous Hall of Famer. Yeah. Just one of the best players in baseball history. So, to be in that realm as a Mariner is just insanity. I'll be a little bit biased, and I would say I would take Cal right now, but Aaron Judge's numbers are a little bit better. He's got a better WRC plus, better slug. He's got most the numbers across the board. Cal Raleigh does have him in RBIs, but that's a little bit of an arbitrary stat that's based off who's on base. It's not really. Obviously he's clutch and he's getting them in, but he does lead in home runs, 32-28. So that's where he's got Judge. So if he can keep up this pace and comes close to an all-time American League record. For the entire season, basically it's going to come down to health and consistency between Judge and Cal Raleigh. And I think they continue at the same pace. I'm taking Cal. I think a lot of people will, but it's going to be pretty divided. And then quickly the NL race, Shohei's got the clear lead, and he's got the third highest OPS in baseball behind only Aaron Judge and Cal Raleigh. And then you got Pete Crow Armstrong just leading the Cubs. He's only 22 or 23 years old. So what he's doing at this young age is insanity. And then Ronald Acuna Jr., I'm going to throw him in the mix because he was injured most of the season and he's batting over 400. He's been doing insane things since he came back from injury. So if Ronald Acuna Jr. continues that in the second half, he will definitely be firmly in the mix to come from behind and possibly win that NL MVP. But it's going to be, I think, a 3-horse race in the NL side, whereas it's the 2-horse race in the AL side right now. But any final thoughts, Ben or Michael, before we wrap up this session?
It's interesting to see Shohei pitch for the first time in a very, very long time.
Definitely,
so
good point.
If Shohei, continues to pitch and he pitches well, maybe we'll see a resurgence from Shohei's pitching side of things. But shout out to the Big Dumper, obviously, as well. I hope he wins it over Aaron Judge, the Big Dumper. But yeah, I also saw the Mets kind of crumple apart against the Atlanta Braves. We know that the Atlanta Braves kind of have their score most of the time in recent memory. Shout out Brandon Keeler from Sports Nuts. I know he's a Braves fan, so shout out him. And as far as the AL East race goes, it's always close every single year, whether it be with the Rays, the Blue Jays, the Yankees, and then the Red Sox. Sometimes, the Orioles are kind of left out in that mix, but that entire division is always a dogfight. So we'll see yet another cinematic finish from that division this year, as I like to call it, the best division in baseball.
It is, yeah, probably every year. Yeah. So, that wild card race is going to be insane. The Mariners are I think still sitting in the last wild card spot, but all of those teams in the AL East are I think the Blue Jays are right in front of the Mariners, and it's so close right now.
Yeah, it's crazy. So as of right now, you got the Blue Jays sitting, and this is all in a 3-4 game interval. You got the Blue Jays sitting at 5, Mariners sitting at 6, Guardians sitting at 7 at just a half game back, Angels at just a game back, the Rangers at just a game and a half back.
And
The
the
Red
Angels are on a
Sox,
tear too.
Yeah,
the
Angels
Red,
are hot.
the Red Sox had 2 games back. And I wouldn't be scared to leave out the Twins and the Royals. I don't have as much hope for the Royals, but the Twins, I most definitely think that they could compete a little bit more and kind of make a push to the wild card spot.
They've
But
got
we
the
have a
offense.
long way to
Yeah,
October, or not really a long way, but I say like 4 months, 3-4 months. July, August, September. Yeah, 3-4 months. So it'll be itchy.
yeah,
Yeah, hey, sometimes I be forgetting the months off.
Baseball
Sometimes you gotta
season's
do some
long,
quick math.
Yeah,
man.
you gotta do some
Yeah.
quick math, but it's
yeah,
gonna be interesting road to October, as they always say. But with that being
for
said,
sure.
thank y'all for everybody for tuning into this episode of Inside the Locker Room. As always, and just now we are live on platforms every week on Instagram and YouTube. So make sure to
Yes,
check us
sir.
out. Check out our co-hosts, Adam B Sports, NFL
Check us out.
Playmakers, and Michael Sports Talk, and me, Sports Talks Reduced. We each have our own content, but also check out our Inside the Locker Room content on our YouTube, our TikTok, and our Instagram. Make sure to share and follow. And thank y'all for y'all support for everything. And as always, stay safe. This is Love from Inside the Locker Room. Peace out.
See you guys on the next one.